a lot of firms that do background checks. We want to know who our partners are, who the managers are that we're hiring. And also it's important to have good government relations, because one of the things that people haven't mentioned yet is everything you do in China, you need to have a good relationship with your local government officials, because they approve your investment. They're there to support you as you want to grow. If you want to, if you're lucky and you're successful and you want to have some dividends sent back to the U.S., you need the local government folks to help approve sending money back to the U.S. And so it's very important to have folks that can help you build and maintain those relationships. So now I'd like to get into some Q&A. And one of the first things that I wanted to ask is, while on the one hand it's exciting to expand to China, most U.S. businesses are mean and lean. The economy's tough right now, and everybody needs to keep their eye on the ball of their core U.S. businesses. And yet, a lot of those same managers that help run the U.S. companies are the ones that are on a plane regularly to China to help develop new business opportunities there. So I'd like to ask our panel, how do you balance the aspect of your managers focusing on both the U.S. business and also looking at new opportunities? You guys want to share that microphone? Go ahead.
For our company, we're a little different because we're such a small company. We're not really going to China to develop new business right now inside China, except for maybe manufacturer. That we have people on the ground. As I said, we have an office in Hong Kong, we have a general manager, and he's in China every week. So it's a little different, I think, than maybe some of these other larger companies. But once we get the woofie going, then we'll be able to sell inside China. And what we've been following strategy going like a Walmart, some other U.S. retailers that are there. They know who we are. It's an easy way to enter the market.
So you're leveraging there.
Correct.
Yeah, for my company, just a general observation is that one of the more difficult pieces of the project to manage is human resources. It takes, we found that we need to have a few really highly qualified applicants at the beginning of the process, and it's highly important to recruit highly qualified local people. And we expect over the course of a few years to have our staff mostly, almost exclusively local. But there are a number of difficulties in the, I'll say the recruitment and retention process, particularly if you're not located in some place like Beijing, China, which is the basically preferred location of highly educated, highly local people, exactly the ones that we want to recruit.
We've chosen to partner with trading companies that represent us in the 13 different factories that we do business with in China. Those trading companies have operations in the U.S. and operations in China. They're in the factories on a weekly basis representing us. We have a small team here in the U.S. We're only 50 full-time employees for our company. So our VP of Sales and Marketing and I are the two people that travel to China, that meet with the factories, that work with the trading companies. So what we've done is make sure that our support team in Memphis has the authority to do the day-to-day business decisions that need to be made while we're gone. They're also accustomed at 3 o'clock in the morning getting emails, all the normal things that we all go through when we're doing business over there. But for us, giving the authority to our team to make those decisions in in our absence, has been a real important part to utilize the talent that we have and be as efficient as we can.
At the Jordan Company, our operating companies are primarily manufacturing. They have sales from 50 to 500 million. Most of the business units are the 50 to 200 million. They're very mean and lean. And we try to help them understand that there's going to be a big investment in both people and travel costs and in the investment in China itself, whether it's to set up manufacturing to serve the Chinese markets or to help set up low-cost sourcing to send back here. Even if we source or have contract manufacturing, we have a lot of our U.S. people go there to help work with our local people and get that up and running. One of the things that many of our companies have done is if a key manufacturing business is going to need the plant manager and the head of quality control and the purchasing manager to spend a lot of time in China, we've encouraged them to actually hire strong people for the U.S. team so that when our key managers are gone for 1, 2, 3 weeks at a time, helping with the Chinese business, we have folks here that can hold down the fort. A lot of the biggest mistakes we've made over the years have been related to our key operating company executives getting so excited about China or Mexico or India or something that they're gone doing that when there's a major issue in the U.S. and we're not able to deal with it as quickly as we should have because we didn't have people that were experienced or authorized to deal with that. So that's something that we are spending more and more time on, and I encourage all of you to think about that as well. Okay, yes?
Building on what Steve said, when we opened up our office, we hired an expat who lives in Hong Kong, and he hired a local Chinese to help with translation, to help dealing directly with the factories. So we deal directly with our person in Hong Kong, and then he deals with the local people. And then we also started doing video conferencing, which helped reduce a lot of the travel. So we had constant contact with them if there were issues, and our largest manufacturer has that capability also. So even though we're not traveling so much, we're there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we have 22 operations in China now. Every operation has a video conference set up in a conference room, and all of our U.S. operations that do business in China have video conferencing as well. It's a great tool, but nothing replaces getting on a plane, building that relationship. In China, you got to do the, Steve is an expert at this, you got to do the mouth ties and do the gambé and all that. So it's hard to do that over the video conference.
Mouth tie is the best in America. And the mouth tie in China is not as good as the mouth tie.
Well, the reason the mouth tie in America is better is you only need to do 2 or 3. You don't need to do like 10 each time, like in China. Now, the Jordan Company is a little different because we've been investing in China a long time. We have 20 business development people on the ground that help our companies handle legal, accounting, all the administrative issues. And we have 20 operating executives that are all Chinese nationals, but they have experienced 10 or 15 years each working for GE, Ingersoll Rand, Emerson, GM, Walmart. So they've been trained on best practices for controls, quality control, procurement, all those things. In fact, most Chinese companies are looking for American firms to help them improve their controls and procedures, because as that's something they want to really become better at, so that they can sell not only to foreign-owned businesses in China, but also export. Okay, let's move on. We talked a little bit about costs rising in China. Have your company's operating margins been squeezed in light of the rising manufacturing costs in China, as well as the global recession that we're dealing with? Steve, why don't you start out with that one?
Okay, one comment earlier was about the renminbi, and that's more of a concern to us than I'll say the labor material driven cost increases. But there's no question that we've had to rethink our business plans in light of a relative shift in the cost structure in China. It's not it's competitive, but it's not as competitive as it was 4 or 5 years ago. And as we're looking to develop our supply base, for instance, we're taking a serious look at Vietnam, for instance, for some components, which not long ago we probably never would have thought of.
We've absolutely had to look at our operating margins. On tires, the combination of the tariff had a 24% impact on the landing cost of our tires. Raw materials have had a 24% impact on our landing cost as well. So since the early part of 2010, the cost of the consumer tires that we buy from China have gone up 48%. That's been passed on to our customer, and it's been passed on to the consumer. Any of you who have purchased tires in the last 12 months may have suffered sticker shock with the price of tires, because not only did it impact the tires that we buy from China, but every tier above that, once the floor went up, then every stage above it went up as well. So our operating margin has, we've cut it 12% in the last 2 years. We've done it by a combination of being more efficient with what we do. We had to eliminate some jobs. We had to get our cost structure down to still be able to get the return that we needed for the stockholders. But that type of cost increase has absolutely forced us to change our operating margins.
Yes, our margins have been squeezed dramatically. As I mentioned before, we sell to Walmart, Target, Babies R Us. They don't want to raise their prices, so we keep getting squeezed. And the only way to get around that is to develop new products. So you can come in the following year with a different model. Maybe you've taken out some costs, some plastics, some steel, some cotton. So it's definitely been a problem. The only way that we've tried to plan for it as we develop products in the future is to anticipate price increases again for raw materials and the renminbi appreciating.
Thank you. I'd like to ask each of our panelists a question regarding their businesses. Jim, I'd like to continue. We had a discussion earlier about the pressure from the U.S. government to impose higher and tougher tariffs and duties related to imported tires. And how has that impacted your sourcing strategy? And how do you think things will change in the future? You might want to give a little background on the situation.
The tire industry has been a target for about 4 years now. When I was doing my presentation, I explained that private brand manufacturing has been winding down in the U.S. over the last 15 years. Cooper's the only remaining company producing private brands. So we had to go offshore to find product. Well, in 2008, there was an action brought against a small segment of the tire industry, the off-road construction tire business. And there was an anti-dumping and countervailing duty action brought against OTR tires. And it was brought on a factory-by-factory basis by a relatively small number of participants in that market. And it was imposed in late 2008. Now, it impacted a very small segment of the tire industry here in the U.S. Those who were impacted severely. That countervailing duty, anti-dumping duty, is ongoing and it can last for years and years. And it varied from plant to plant anywhere from 0% to 40%. It put one company out of business here, GPX, but that was just the initial phase. In 2009, the Steelworkers Union brought an action to the International Trade Commission based upon a 421 provision that was agreed upon by China and the U.S. in 2003. It was an agreement to allow U.S. manufacturers to bring action against Chinese manufacturers who were selling at very low prices in the U.S. And it was a 3-year provision to give the U.S. manufacturer time to change their operations and become more efficient. So the Steelworkers Union actually brought this petition to the Trade Commission in 2009. There was not a single American manufacturer that was involved in this. It was strictly the Steelworkers Union. And so in September of 2009, the administration imposed a 35% tariff. Now that's a 3-year process that will wind down. Today we're hearing that there are rumors that the Steelworkers Union is again active and that they may request through the Department of Commerce an anti-dumping countervailing duty action on radial truck tires. Now, all of us involved have our opinions on this and feel strongly that it was more of a political action than it was anything. If you ask the 1,956 workers at the Union City, Tennessee plant that Goodyear closed in July of this year, if the tariff helped save jobs, I think they'll say no, it didn't help save any jobs. It cost more jobs because the cost to the consumer went up, consumers' demand fell as a result of that. There's 2 things that we learned through this process that I would suggest that anyone in any industry facing these type of actions might want to remember. Number 1, get everyone involved, create coalitions, create a common approach to show the facts if you do not agree that this should be done. In the OTR case, it was a very fragmented approach. Companies did it on their own. Many of the Chinese manufacturers did not even respond to the International Trade Commission request for information. They ignored it and they got hit the hardest. During the 421 fight, we did form some coalitions, but again, we didn't see the type of combined effort on the part of the Chinese manufacturers to have an impact with the Chinese government and have an impact here in the U.S. With the rumors started on radial truck tire tariffs, we've already, this has only been a 4-week process now that we started hearing the rumors. The major Chinese truck tire manufacturers have met twice with their legal representation. They're already working on this. Here in the U.S., our coalition has been expanding. We've already had discussions with a number to sit down and plan our approach to this. So a combined, coordinated approach, I think, is essential. The second piece is for what we did on the consumer tariff. Tariff was there. We had to deal with it. I mentioned earlier that what do we do when the tariff goes off? That's a key point for us now, to keep from having our inventory devalued when the tariff goes away. We spent a year becoming a foreign trade zone on this. As a foreign trade zone, we pay tariffs and duties when we sell the product, not when we clear customs, when we purchase the product. So what this has done for us is freed about $1 million a month in cash flow, where we were paying duties up front before. Now we're paying it when we sell it. So that's about a 90 to 105 day period that we have use of our money and we're not giving it to customs. The other thing is the tariff goes away. We pay tariff as a foreign trade zone based upon the tariff in effect at the time of the sale. So on September 27th of next year, we're going to be market priced on the inventory that we have in place at that time. So just a couple of suggestions for you if you find yourself facing the types of tariffs and duties that the tire industry is facing.
Thanks. Well, what I've found significant is historically, most of the times when there were tariff issues. It was a manufacturer accusing another manufacturer of dumping, or a foreign supplier selling stuff below cost to get U.S. market share. And what's interesting here is you have the unions getting involved, saying that by U.S. manufacturers sourcing offshore, that's hurting, you know, the workforce. And so that's I think that sort of pressure is gonna grow, and something we'll need to be more aware of. Steve, I'd like to move up to Navistar. Many U.S. auto companies, such as GM, Ford, and others, have been very successful in moving their production and sales and marketing to China in the last 10 years. In fact, China is now the largest automotive market in the world, with, I think it's 17, 18, 19 million cars a year. It's just phenomenal. 5-6 years ago, they were 4 or 5 million, and now they're, you know, the world leader. But for the trucking companies, it doesn't seem that many U.S. trucking companies and component suppliers have yet benefited from the growing Chinese market. What does Navistar, or what are Navistar and other U.S. design truck and engine suppliers planning to do to enter the Chinese market?
Okay, well, that's a complicated question. Let me address that in two ways. One, in my remarks, Navistar fully expects a long-term favorable trend in the commercial vehicle industry, which will favor the adoption of more advanced technology. That's going to take some time. As the market, as we expect, changes from a price-only based model to a model that is more influenced by productivity. Also, in China, as in most other markets, the technology employed in the truck business is European style, not North American style. We think that there are some definite advantages to the North American type of truck. And a part of our approach and part of our building relations with the Chinese industry has been to participate in lots of technical conferences, industry conferences, where our experts can tell the story of why I'll say the North American model of commercial vehicles could be successful or more successful than the European model. Now, do we expect the Chinese to change their length laws and other kind of regulations in our favor? Probably not. But we are getting our name in front of the technical press, and we're building a brand for Navistar, not only as a company that just makes trucks, but a highly technically advanced company that again helps our overall market plan for China. Another couple of comments here, though. In the car business, you're right. I think that this year China will sell around 17 million passenger cars. High water mark for Detroit was in 2008, I think it was 16 million. And China is adding somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million units of capacity per year in the automotive business, which is 2 or 3 respectively sized assembly plants and a big number of component supply plants. Commercial vehicles, roughly just over 1 million heavy-duty trucks sold in China in 2011. That compares to 250,000 in North America. So we feel that by bringing our technology to China, by having a strong partner who participates in more of the value part of the business, enables us to have a strategy that over time will be successful.
Thank you. Okay, Tom. We've all heard about China's one-child policy with many children with 4 grandparents and 2 parents, no brothers and sisters, no cousins. And as the growing middle market continues to expand in China, it appears there will be opportunities for juvenile products and education products for these families in China. What is Kolcraft doing to look into these opportunities, and how are you planning to look at these markets and selectively expand?
The first thing that we are doing is we're becoming a WOFE, so we'll be allowed to sell in China, because right now we can't as a rep office. And that's going to happen early next year. We see the way to expand in China is maybe through some of our licensees, such as Jeep. Jeep's a brand name that's known in China, and like we do here, we kind of ride on the coattails. Kolcraft is not known in China, and I don't know if we'll be able to establish that brand there. Part of the problem, as I mentioned, a lot of the tooling that we developed, a lot of the products we developed with our largest manufacturer, and so they have the rights to those tooling, which they're already selling in China. So they're not going to want to sell under our brand, they're trying to sell it themselves. So for us to sell in China, we have to have innovative product, or again, work with our licensees that are global brand names that they already know in China.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. Anybody have any questions for the panel? Well, I've got some more here. We'll just keep going. Oh, you do? Okay, sorry.
Yes, good morning. For the manufacturing that takes place in China, you have quality control people there, but have you ever used outside inspection forces? And if so, what's your impression of those?
The question is for quality control. In addition to folks here in the U.S., have you used outside firms to participate in the quality control process in China? Jim, why don't you address that first?
Certainly on the tire side, tires can be a tremendous safety issue when they're on vehicles here in the U.S. There are companies in China that will use for internal quality evaluations. We also use companies here in the U.S. like Smithers and Standard Testing Laboratories to do follow-up testing on tires as well. So we try to have a China presence at the factory with their internal quality control group. We have outside companies in China that we contract with to do periodic checks on the tires coming off the assembly line. And then from time to time, especially when we're introducing a new line of product, we'll have testing done here in the U.S. just to verify that as well.
My comment